All right, well, I guess we should probably introduce ourselves first, correct?
Yeah, you can go back to slideshow. We can, I guess, do that.
So,
well, welcome. Oh, go ahead.
So, welcome to 201 Remote Tools. This is an extension from the 101 that we did on Tuesday. My name is Travis Armstrong. I teach in Dublin City Schools. This is my 13th year here. I did 8 years in 7th grade, 3 years at the high school, and now I'm back in 7th grade. Got my master's in educational technology. We've been doing a lot of online things and connecting students from Beechwood to Dublin for like 5 or 6 years now, maybe a little longer than that. So that's a little bit about who I am. So Garth, JC, whichever one wants to go next.
Yeah, I'll
go next.
JC Link, teaching at Beechwood City Schools. I teach 6th grade social studies here. I'm entering my 13th year as a teacher and 6th year here at Beechwood. Like Travis, I also have my master's degree in educational technology from Alden Wallace. But I just encourage all of you, the step that the educational technology world has taken in the past 6 months is incredible. So, just give it a shot. It's here and not going to go away, that's for sure. So go ahead, Garth.
My name is Garth Holman, and I introduced myself last time. I've taught for a long time in middle school. I get the numbers confused, so we'll leave it at a long time. I have gray hair, so that gives you an indication. I've taught at the university for about 15 years as well, doing tech integration. Unlike these two youngsters, I do not have my master's in educational technology. I just learned, I teach college courses on educational technology, but I don't actually have any formal training. I learned mine through just doing. My big credential is I am a state certified social studies teacher by the state of Ohio. Plug in there for the ODE. So we're going to continue on with these remote 201 tools, and we're going to do that through a different program. So we're going to ask you to join in. If you've never done this, we're going to kind of put these links in the chat box, so you don't have to go to a new tab. We're going to put the links in. And when the link goes in, it's already in there from Travis. If you see it, if you look in the chat box, if you click the www join PD, a new tab will open. So we're going to kind of go back and forth between tabs to show you what you're actually doing and what's happening. So if you open the new tab, when you open the new tab, you'll type in that www, Travis, if you can put it in again, because somebody else just came in.
Yep.
If you click on that, it's going to ask you for a code, and the code is going to be LKVCH. So right now we see on the Meet, if you're looking at your Peardeck page, because it's going to ask you how you're feeling today, we see that 5 students have entered that class. So we're going to have you continue to do that and give you just a second to get everybody in there. And again, if you don't want to participate in the Peardeck section, you can just stay in the Meet and you'll see everything we're talking about. You just don't see what it looks like for the kids and how the kids would be doing this or the students would be doing this as we work. So if anybody needs more time, just maybe put in the chat, give me a second. If not, we're going to start with Peardeck, and I'll let Travis kind of begin the talk here.
All right, so the first question here is just asked to see how many of you guys joined us on, I guess it was Tuesday, for the Remote 101. At the Remote 101 learning, for those of you that weren't there, we talked about virtual classroom. The two that we really focused on there was Schoology and Google Classroom. We talked about the visual meetings. We talked about a number of different options, but really focused on talking about Google Meet because that's the one that the vast majority of us are probably using. Talked about the screen capture software of Screencastify. Video tools, Edpuzzle was the big one there, then the virtual learning where everything kind of comes together inside of the HyperDoc. So if you weren't there on Tuesday and any of that sounds of interest, that information will be posted on the ODE's website, so you can always go back and kind of look through that. So let's see what the responses were to the question on how many of you joined us here. So if you can, on my screen, I can hit show responses, and I can see that 7 7 of the 10 of you that are on the Peardeck said you were here, and 3 of you were not. So if you guys can, like Garth was saying a minute ago, if you have the 2 tabs open, you have the Meet on one tab and then the Peardeck on the other. If you actually switch to the Meet tab for a moment, you can see what you would be looking at if you were the student inside of the room, because you could see my screen.
And you'll notice that they are updating as I switch from yes to no. So it is totally immediate response. So this is clearly a formative assessment, immediate feedback from your students. Even though we're in Cleveland, Cincinnati, Columbus, all over the state, we can still collect data from you as you are doing your work. We're obviously not asking you work questions or real difficult questions, but the idea is that we can capture that as we're working. The other piece that you obviously noted, yeah, second monitor does make this easier. The other piece that we would like you to kind of keep in mind is the kids, if they're on the Peardeck, if you stayed on the Peardeck, you're just hearing us. That's okay, because all the information of what we're presenting is on the other tab. Anything else you wanted to say, JC, before, or Travis and JC?
No, I mean, I think if you have not used Peardeck before, you will really see the benefits of it here coming up.
I guess just make sure that we're all clear with, like, the purpose of today is for us to highlight a few tools that we really feel like are beneficial. So we'll focus on, I don't know the number off the top of my head, like 5 or 6 tools that you guys that you'll be able to use in class. And Peardeck is obviously one of those. So we're just kind of embedding it into what we're doing here. So, all right, you ready?
The other thing you must realize fairly quickly is that he controls your screen if you're back on the Peardeck. What he does automatically adjusts your screen. You don't have control over what you're seeing or what you're doing. He's controlling that from Columbus. The audio is, well, you can go ahead. It may not work with the way we have this set up, Travis, because the audio actual directions are buried inside underneath the color thing. We picked a bad slide to do that on. So just explain what you'd like people to do, please.
All right. So on your Peardeck screen, you should have you should have the option to be able to draw on it. So if you're using a touch screen, or if you're using your phone or a touch screen, it obviously makes life a little bit easier because you can literally just put your finger on the screen and draw. If you're using a mouse trackpad, it makes it a little harder because you have to hold down the trackpad and click and hold and kind of draw at the same time. But we want you to draw your best version of Ohio here. And we're just going to see how much anxiety we can create by giving you a timer.
Oh no, I've got to erase.
Yeah, the timer really does add some anxiety to the students when you're doing this live. I believe you can change that. Is it still like 15, 30, 60 seconds, Travis?
30 seconds, 1 minute, 3 minutes.
Okay.
While you're kind of finishing your drawings, I'll talk a couple ways of I've used draw. When we do Gothic architecture, they draw flying buttresses and different examples of baptism, their understanding of different ideas. I am amazed at what kids can draw. Not that we're going to be as wonderful drawers as they maybe.
Okay. So you all probably noticed that your screen just locked, right? So I can, when the timer's set, when the timer ends, it automatically locks your screen. I can unlock your screen so you can go back to drawing on it if you'd like. And again, I can hit show responses. So if you jump back to the Meet tab, you can see the responses, the drawings of all of the classmates for, maybe lack of a better term here. You guys are pretty good here.
Well, these are history teachers. What did you expect? Nice, I like that one, OH.
Should have done a tough one like Colorado.
Yes. Don't be sad, whoever that is. You're fine. And when we had a happy one too. So first thing you can see is this is pretty powerful stuff where we can draw, we can see, we can share work, but nobody's name's there. So we're not embarrassing anybody. We're not pointing anybody out. As Travis is running this on this particular case, Travis can see your names. Travis knows who's doing what, but nobody in the class knows. So this is a way for you to get formative assessment feedback instantaneously over distance without a lot of trouble. Yeah, I was trying to read some. Go ahead. We might do that. I'm trying to read the chat box. I apologize.
No, yeah, I got it. I'll take care of that one, I think. All right. So to show you the next type of Peardeck slide here. So the question, have you ever used Flipgrid before? Go ahead and drag the dot to the yes or the no.
So again, if you were to move back to the team chat or to the meet, you would see that people's stars are lined up. Again, you can't tell who's who, but we have, it looks to me, just guessing, it looks like you have a few more that have used it than haven't, but I'm not sure. Looks pretty tricky there on that one.
Yep.
By the way, if you're again, you can do all kinds of drags. It could be a map where you're identifying location. It can be you could have a background image of a United States map where you're doing geographical features and kids are dragging, or IDs of states in Europe, however you choose to use this. And you can have multiple drags. So you can have up to 6 icons in different color that kids can drag. So drag the red one here, the blue one here, this one here, and quickly check, do they know, in a sense, where locations are, things are.
All right. So we'll go ahead and take a little break from talking about Peardeck so much and let JC talk about Flipgrid for those of you that haven't seen it or haven't used it, or maybe those of you have a new idea here.
Right. So for those of you that have not used Flipgrid, this is a great tool to use for students. And kind of how I always explain, it's just a video response tool. You can post a question, which is called a grid, and then have different topics in it. Students record their answers, and then you get to view their responses. I find it really helpful. Sometimes if you ask for an extended response or even a written response, you may not really get to know what all the students actually know. I mean, and that's kind of our job. We want to know what the kids are thinking and what they actually know. That's our ultimate goal. And I think that they speak better than they actually do if you're asking for a written response. Now that's, depending on what grade and what level you teach at, the writing is obviously going to change, but it's a very quick tool to set up. You can play hundreds. I think I looked at mine before. I have 1,400 videos that I've collected responses from over the years, but you can change all the settings on there. You can personalize the website so it's easy for kids to find. It's very safe. You can set up domains, like just the last part of your email address. So only students with, beechwoodstudents.org. If you don't have that domain, you can't get in. So it is very safe. The kids really enjoy it. You can make selfies out of it. They get to decorate their pictures when they're done. But it's just essentially a video response tool that is very easy to set up once you get used to it. And the kids really enjoy it, and with them enjoying it, they're not afraid to do it, and then you get to learn what they actually learned from your lesson or whatever question you're posing to them. So those of you that have not tried Flipgrid, we have some tutorials on it, and quick and easy to set up.
So JC, what does the word Flipgrid and blue have? If they're looking at their Peardeck, if they click that Flipgrid, where are they going to go?
That is to teachersfortomorrow.net. That's we made a bunch of tutorials back in, I believe, March or April, early April, when everybody was going remote to try to help everybody out. Now, keep in mind, the past 6 months, the world of educational technology has drastically improved. I think Flipgrid now, they even included a whiteboard that teachers and students can draw on to explain themselves. So like math teachers out there, that's a great tool for that. They can have up to 10-minute responses. I know a lot of foreign language teachers are using Flipgrid so they can hear their students, so the students can hear each other. They can reply and comment on each other if you allow those in the settings. But a very, very powerful tool, and it can be used for any content, any grade, doesn't matter. Flipgrid is definitely a tool that you should have in your toolbox.
So that's something else to point out. Anytime you see a blue link in the Peardeck, on your version, you can click and you'll be gone other places. You can go visit stuff we're talking about while we're talking. You don't have to sit and look at the Flipgrid, or excuse me, the page. Any blue link is live on your Peardeck, so you can click it and go anywhere you want. Everything's pretty much, even all the images as you go are linked. So if you click them, they're going to take you somewhere to see something. The other one I'll point out with Flipgrid that I really liked, and Travis and I have done this project the last 2 years, we tweeted out, what does human rights mean to you? And we have collected answers from all over the world. So people from Sweden and Africa and the Swiss Alps, all over the United States. And what we do is have the kids then pick 3 or 4 people to listen to see what their view. So bringing in different perspective into your social studies classroom. We had virtually every religion was accounted for in that. It is pretty powerful stuff. So that's another way to use Flipgrid, where you can record things for your students to come back to and see, where you can't keep that person in your room and keep presenting. They can do Flipgrids, and you can save those videos for them to explain ideas or concepts that your kids can look at. Yeah. But I think that's a very powerful way to use Flipgrid.
Right. Actually, the best way I use it really doesn't even pertain to social studies. I always send a Flipgrid to the upcoming 6th graders. So, I mean, last year I sent it to them in, I think, April or May to the 5th graders. And it's great to hear them pronounce their own names. I'm very big on, students' names and trying to pronounce them correctly, so I can practice that. And I mean, it's also beneficial. I get to know the kids before I actually see them. Some of the kids are blown away during we have a 6th grade orientation. I'll call some out and ask them, one young lady said that she wanted to be president when she grows up. So I would ask her, I know her name first off. I know that she wants to be president. They're just very impressed and blown away. Like, wow, this guy knows me already, and I've never stepped foot in his classroom.
I guess we can move on. The next one is Thinklink. So if you've never used Thinklink, you can click on either image to the right or left. They're going to take you to the actual live Thinklink so you can see what Thinklink looks like. You certainly do not need to stay on the Peardeck. Just leave the Meet open and you'll hear us talking so you can go explore. There's 2 ones we gave you here. The one to the left is a content explanation. So it explains content. That is attacking and defending a castle during medieval times. And the image to the right is what we call our digital refrigerator. So our students at the end of the year, they vote on the projects that were made that year that should make it to the digital refrigerator. So this is a collection of some of the best projects we've gotten over the years. There's a YouTube on there with 500,000 views by a 12-year-old. So the digital refrigerator has some of the best projects that we've ever had kids produce, and that's voted on by kids. Thinklink is a very simple tool to use that allows you to bring any image, anything, a screenshot of anything you take to life. You can add video, you can add text, you can add readings, you can add images. You can have we'll see on the next slide, so I'll leave it at that. I would recommend that you do take 30 seconds and click on one of these and actually see how it works on your screen. So because the refrigerator has lots of sound, you're muted, so we wouldn't hear it anyway, but you can play a video on there and see what it sounds like. It's all kids. But Travis, why don't you click on the content one, because I don't think there's video in that. So if anybody's not in the Peardeck kind of on their own, we can show you what it kind of looks like and how it really works if you're staying with us. Again, if you have any questions about Thinklink, you can put them in the text box, or you can clearly turn your mic off and just ask a question. But of course, as he rolls his cursor over the icons, things pop up and come alive. That takes you to a reading on a link. This takes you to images of siege towers so they can get a variety of images. So each button, like an F tells a fact versus an I gives information. So there's just a lot of stuff going on. That's a video embedded. There's battlements that they can look at what different types of battlements look like. And all the links are live inside there. So when they click, they'll go right to where you want them to go. So I don't know what we're looking at there. Tower, it's a little hard for me. So if he clicks it, it's probably, in this case, I don't know what it's going to pull up, castle architecture, and it's just going to run down through all the different architectural pieces the kids could learn about inside a castle. So you are making it now more exploratory, more inquiry-based learning, but you're building it off an image instead of through, here's 20 worksheets and 15 questions, go research and find the answers. You're taking them on a tour of something this way. So we'll give you guys a second. I don't know if anybody is using their Peardeck version and looking at anything. We will move on when we see some, if you're ready to move on, maybe it's best to say, okay, we can move on from this slide because, well, let's do it this way. Thank you, Travis, you're so smart.
So within Peardeck, I can just randomly add a new prompt. So I'm just going to put a prompt here and we'll make it this agree or disagree. So when you are ready to move on, go ahead and move the dot to the word agree. And once we see the majority of dots on agree, we'll move on.
You got to show the answers, bud.
You're right, I do. Otherwise, I'm not going to know if they have them on agree.
Okay, so everybody's ready to roll.
All right.
So again, another way to get a little formative assessment is an impromptu question. He can just build his whole slideshow once he starts it from the new prompts. Why don't you click on that while people, if they're looking, can see the options of what you can do.
So I'll just go ahead and add a new prompt here, and I'll ask the question, and I'll just say, does anybody have any questions so far within the presentation that we can answer for you?
So again, the whole point of that is there are so many questions pre-built. You can just you could build 2 slides, and then based on what's going on, you can just add slide after slide to keep a presentation, a discussion going. Are there tutorials for the digital refrigerator? Yes, we have tutorials for Thinklink. That I don't know if we put the link in there, to be honest, and he switched my screen so I can't see it.
Yeah,
if
I don't think
not there, that will be something else we will send to Linda when she puts it online for later this week.
And if worst case scenario, if you go to, and I'll put the link inside the chat box here in a minute, but if you go to teachersfortomorrow.net, there's a tab there that says,
I do not believe Thinklink is one of them.
What's that?
I don't think Thinklink is on there, on that tutorial page.
But they could always use the search bar up there anyway, but.
We'll put them in.
Yeah.
We'll put them in the slideshow, so when it gets posted online, the slideshow will have the links. That's the way we'll make sure we do it.
Okay. All right. So we will continue ever onward.
So then this is the other thing Thinklink can do. So I absolutely hope you will click. And again, if you do not want to click and want to just watch Travis, he'll do the same thing. But if you're on your tab, you can kind of listen to us talk. But you're going to be in a 360 of my classroom. Live, virtual, kids in it, everything's rolling. There are podcasts embedded. And if you click the right icon, you will be transported to the Cleveland Museum of Art. So you can try this. If you would like to just watch it on the Meet tab, Travis is going to go ahead and go to it so we can kind of watch it on his if you just want to watch, and we can talk a little bit about what's happening. So when it opens up, it's going to open up as a 3D view. We probably should open that sooner because, of course, everything takes longer to load.
It's almost there.
It's almost there. So that was
All right.
without a beard, I guess.
Which one do you want me to click on?
Well, let's scroll around first to show them no room. The front of the room set up the directions for the kids. So one was like, hey, listen to do this first. Here's what you're going to see. These are the directions. the order you go through the museum. 2 was podcasting, directions, navigation, how do you navigate through, and then a Google form the kids would fill out at the end. So if you click on the navigation icon, it's going to tell transport us, oops, I'm sorry. Click off, that was just explaining the itinerary once you get to the museum. So go to the museum one right before it, since you're in control, little icon before that. All right, do it this way, Travis. I don't know which button, and I can't control it. Just click Cleveland Art Museum, the gallery, the first one at the bottom. So now you're inside the art museum. So we've been transported from Beechwood to inside the atrium of the art museum. There's all these codes, and then here's your number 1. So you're supposed to go there. So when you click, you're on your way there. And now you're inside the tapestry room of the Cleveland Museum of Art. Inside that, you have images that blow up and podcasts explaining what you're looking at. So now we've built in podcasts inside to take kids on true virtual 360 tours. If you want to skip to, let's say, the Armored Court, that's the most famous one. We took them to about 10 places. So, but here's Armored Court. If you just click on any of those, some of them blow things up. Some of them tell you podcasts. That takes you to the other end of the room so you can see it from a totally different perspective. This is also built in Thinklink. So you're able to take kids on a different kind of tour from sitting in a classroom. Just like you guys in Cincinnati are now, in a sense, if you go full screen with this, you're in the Cleveland Art Museum. The other thing I will tell you when he cancels out, this is also made for VR goggles. So you could put this in goggles on a cell phone and actually wander through the museum, just so you're aware.
Yeah, and your students build these, right?
Yeah, they didn't build this one, but there'll be more to come where they see them building them.
Right. Yeah, the virtual field trips is becoming quite a hit now with not being able to go anywhere.
I believe the next slide, but I can't remember the slide order.
All right, we ready for the next slide? Were you?
Yeah. So we move forward. We're about 5 o'clock. You want to start with this one, JP?
Yeah. Okay. I guess what would a social studies class be without maps, right? This is Google My Maps. We all use this, or Garth and I use this as basically an electronic portfolio. And you could see as you kind of explore around this, and even the picture there, this is the culmination of 6th, 7th, or maybe just 6th and 7th grade social studies. Everything that we do in class ends up on their My Maps. If I have them fill out a chart on a Google Doc about religion, they can embed that into their My Maps. It's essentially an electronic portfolio. Every single thing they do.
Let me interrupt for a second, Lucy. For the people that are on the Peardeck, just click the map and it'll open up full screen and you can really see what's going on. So if you are using the Peardeck and you're actually doing it, Travis, again, for those of you who aren't, can do the same thing. But now when JC's talking, you can kind of see what we mean, right? The map totally opens up. And now maybe we'll explain the left a little bit about the tabs and what you can do there.
Yeah, so on the left side, you can see you can have different layers. This will take some planning, especially if you're using it across many years. So you're allowed a maximum of 10 layers. As you click on the layers, you will see things start to appear or disappear. So you kind of watch what you've learned as you go on. Like if you start and have your 6th grade stuff at the top, we just start with simple icons. I teach this, I teach my classes this actually doing a lit trip. I guess cross-curricular with ELA on a long walk to water. So a story about a young man in South Sudan and his trip to the United States as a refugee, and we plot all the points on there. But My Maps, you can have videos, you can put YouTube videos, you can put
we can show some if you're looking, there's a Screencastify that's the kids' reflection on what they learned from the My Map. You click on the purple arrows, right? Each arrow pulls up information. This is the products that we're going to the old world, right? These are the products going to the new world. But if you click the middle, it explains what the Columbian Exchange was. And this is all kid writing. This is not an assignment that we go do the mind map. We teach, we learn, we do our stuff, and then they put on what they believe is important, not what I tell them to put on. So let me rephrase that. I tell them you have to have the Columbian Exchange, but I don't tell them what to write about it. They figure out what is the most important things they want on it. And again, if you click on, there's a Google slideshow underneath the thing. If you click on it, it'll automatically pull up their team Google slideshow where they worked together to find out all the information. So they weren't all working independently. Now they're working in groups to find information to build their mind map.
And one thing really I'm going to add in here is the real benefit and power of doing this from grade to grade is now when in Ohio, when the ninth graders go to, or when we have ninth graders looking at modern world history, they can go back and have that quick refresher of what happened during the Renaissance as a way to remind them, okay, this is where we left off in seventh grade and where we're picking up. So it's really beneficial for them to be able to see in their own writing, because it'll make more sense to them to help build their knowledge on it.
Well, click on one of the maps or one of the flags, like one of the Spanish flags or English flags. By the way, you can zoom in, so zoom in a little bit so they can see you can actually go ground level on this map. So we can go all the way in as far as we want. But if you click on a map or on one, I don't know what you're clicking on.
I don't either.
You're still zooming in. It's lagging quite a bit.
But
so this getting pretty intricate on their drawing too. Where was this? The Spain claimed New Florida, right? So it's pretty interesting how they can draw and build regions of what's going on.
This was the greatest review tool that I've ever used when I had an air test as sixth grade social studies. I mean, because the students built it, they made it. I have a feeling, or I feel strongly, that whenever they do it themselves, they remember better. Every single thing we did was in one place, and they did it, and they could review it very easily.
Yeah. Travis, I think it's just lagging on you on your end. Go back to your presentation for a second, the Peardeck.
Yep.
If any of you happen to be on the Peardeck, I would like to point out that last link at the bottom where it says Student Podcast on Impact of My Map had on them. If you click that, and I'm going to have Travis see if he can click it on his just so you can visually see it. We aren't going to have time to do that, but maybe, see, I don't know if you can get beneath that and click it.
No, I'm not having any luck.
Yeah, probably not.
You might
open up for tomorrow, and it's going to start with, for those of you that are clicked on it. Again, I know we're going through multiple things pretty quickly, but if you click on it, you'll see a podcast at the very beginning where I interview the kid about how did this help him learn, and his words are very, very insightful. But down at the bottom, there's even a cooler thing. You can overlay this on Google Earth, so the kid can put this on their Google Earth on Chrome and literally fly around the world to everything they learned to the exact location. So if they started democracy at the Knicks in Greece, you can be standing on the stone in the Knicks and then fly to the next place they built. So that my map will overlay on Google Earth, which is pretty wild. That's in the post if you want to read about that or see how that works. We explain that in there. I think we should move on if there are no questions there. Does anybody have questions again? Again, interrupt. So in this particular one, is this me talking about this? I got confused. Google Earth project. If you have not used Google Earth, those of you that are social studies teachers, if you go to Google Earth already has built hundreds of projects for social studies teachers, hundreds. This particular project you're looking at is a student-created project that they built on Google Earth called Steps to Democracy. So what she did is she built, in my class as a 12-year-old, she started and flew us to a variety of locations around the world to explain how the democracy we live in is really built on the democracy from the whole world and where it came from. So in this case, we'll go to another scene where she went. So she went to Alexandria, and she decided that Alexandria the Great had something to do with that. And I assume what she talked about was the spreading of Hellenistic culture. Then she took us to the Roman Forum, and pulls us right into the ruins of the Roman Forum. And she's writing to you, telling you why she believes this has an important impact on American democracy. In this case, she's added images, and she explains about the representative democracy, how the the Senate worked. But you can go to the table of contents. It might be easier.
Yep.
Just because they get how we fly around the world, but it does take a long time for all this to load. By the way, if you click the link, it will open up on your Google Earth and your computer, and you can spend all the time on this you want. But then she goes to the Statue of Liberty. That's somewhere in hers. That's step 6, right? And so she talked about this gift from France. Now, I didn't teach her about this. She tried to piece together, how did democracy really function, and where does it come from? So what the kids are building are not answer 5 questions. They're building an in-depth, worldwide view of how democracy came to be in the United States. And I can't remember if you scroll up. I think hers started in Japan, if I'm not mistaken. It might not have.
Yeah.
Japan. So she started with monarchies and how democracy was such a drastic change from the monarchies. So, and then she takes you all the way. What's the last thing she put on there? The middle school. She brought us to the United Nations, right? And then she went into, like, if you go to DC, she's going to take us to like the Supreme Court and different places there about how we established our form of democracy. This is and this is kid created. This isn't created by any of us, right? This is a 12-year-old who are building these. That's a pretty cool project where she talks about, the role and the members. So not only are they doing their social studies standards for 7th grade, but they're also encapsulating the government standards. In later years, they're encapsulating standards that are built into 8th grade year with the development of the US Constitution. So this project takes on its own life. This is relatively, and I know people hate that when I say it, but it's relatively simple to accomplish. It used to be a very difficult task, but last year, Google made drastic changes to make this a very simple way to do. There are tutorials for this as well. Again, I'm not sure if we linked them just because of the time crunch we were in. If not, we will put them on the slideshow because we do have tutorials that we've used for this. Any questions on this Google Earth project? My mom decided to call me from New York right now, so excuse me, I'm just going to tell her I'm in a meeting.
Remote learning. Go ahead, Travis. I think I got the next one. Is it Sutori? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So Sutori is another tool that we use. It's basically a timeline builder. In 6th grade, I always have them research just things that have happened in their lifetime. They can sequentially put them on the Sutori, but other than just putting things down, in chronological order, which is one of the standards, they can get so much more in depth. As you can see from the screenshots here, they can add YouTube videos, they can add imagery, and they summarize what they are learning in there. But it's a powerful tool because it draws us so many aspects of learning. Whether you're a visual learner or auditory learner, there's just so many different ways that they can pull from their memory to to recall this information, whether it's in later years or for a test or assessment or whatever you have. But Sutori is another tool that we use. You can put quiz questions in there. The kids can share them with each other. They can present them to the classes. But it's another collaborative tool that we use. As you can see, we're all very visual. And again, the kids are creating these. We kind of set out the guidelines and then kind of just let them go and see what they come up with. And most of the time they'll surprise you in what they actually know. And then, the deeper they dig, the more that they learn actually.
Yeah, and this is done between 2 kids, so it is a collaborative process. They can be working at the same time on the same project over distance. They can build quizzes and just answer it. It'll tell you if you're right or wrong. You don't even need to read it, Travis. I'll try again. You didn't get it right. There you go. So it's got the kids can build self-correcting things to if other students are using their work, and then these kind of artifacts become artifacts of real learning, right? They can carry on with them, again, making connections to the modern mind and how this has impacted us as we live today, which ironically, this was done last year before the pandemic started. We actually had to cover the Black Death last year online, which was not conducive to.
I think this is from 2 years ago.
Might have been.
Yeah.
But Satori, one thing about Satori, there is a price to it for unlimited and all the features, but Satori offers a free version. Again, Peardeck that we're using offers a free version. You could get the paid version, but you do not need that. Peardeck would say you do, but you don't. Same thing with Satori. They will let you do the basic stuff where you can build down and these kind of interactive timelines. It is made specifically for history teachers to use in history classrooms. So it can certainly be used in other classes, but this was made by history teachers for history teachers. The price on this is, I believe, for all of your students to have pro access, and that's unlimited in a school, I believe is $99 a year. That gives them all pro accounts as well. Not that you need that, but just so we're letting you know in advance on that particular one. And I do have some free accounts. If anybody's really interested and wants to use it, email me. I have a code or two still that I can share that you can get a free pro account if you want. So here we are at VR and Tour Creator. So VR is obviously there's VR that's built into your phone that Google already has called Expeditions. Expeditions are created by professionals to take you on tours all over the world. We are not talking about that kind of VR. These are all student created VR. So again, if you're on the Peardeck, you could click one of two of these images. The image of the principal looking is a blog post by a student teacher writing about what she thought when she was watching the kids build their own blog posts or their own VR. The second one was a kid was in Rome, and I let him borrow a special camera so he could he's in these pictures, taking pictures of the Colosseum, and that made it a 360. He travels from there to the Forum, to the Pantheon, and he built all kinds of information to teach everybody about it. The third one is in Tour Creator. That is the cathedral. So I'm going to kind of open this one up for you and let Travis kind of walk you through this, because this one's kind of interesting as well. Or you know where you're going, Travis?
Yeah. So from in here, when we click on we can turn on narration.
Is it TRETINGS or is it TREETINGS?
And I'm just going to kind of play around a little bit.
Traveler so soon.
See
Greetings, weary travelers.
kind of
Welcome
see a
to
few
the Orleans
things.
Cathedral located in France. Quickly, you must come inside. Oh, where are my manners? But surely you must have heard news of me. After all, we're the spread of my mischievous behavior.
Yeah, you can maybe turn the narration off because it's kind of cutting. The narration is student done, so they're building podcasts to explain what they're doing. But if you look around, you are in the 360 building. So you can see the ceilings, the roofs, everything. These images are easily pulled using Tour Creator from all kinds of Google places that are free. There's no issue, there's no copyright. You're able to pull them and use them. You can then blow all these things up. Like this is real VR. This is made for you to wear goggles. It will work on a computer, but this is made for kids to build their own VR. So any kid that goes through my classroom, they have already built 3 or 4 VRs that are housed on their phone of content they learned before they leave school at the end of the year. Most of them want to learn how to do the narration because they want to be able to tell their story. They're writing historical fiction for me as they work through this. So she, in this case, took us to 9 different scenes. You know, there's 6 scenes we're kind of looking at. So she took us to different parts of the cathedral. And I believe she got us back to her house at the very end where she lived. She was a peasant on pilgrimage. So she was trying to explain to you what it was like to go on this pilgrimage. Again, all these links are live, so you can go back and see them. Dan, did you have a question, or you just waving your hand? I just happened to see him, so I don't know.
Yeah, I saw that too.
So anyways, that is Tour Creator and Tour Presenter. The link is linked to tutorials on how to do those. So you can click there on your computer or in the Peardeck, whichever version you're in, and you will be able to see, I'm gonna be honest with that, that's a pretty bad tutorial because I made it quick to compare two different pieces of software and then let kids choose. That's how I taught how to do this with them though, and they were able to do it. So it's not the best tutorial, but it gets the point.
So one of the last things, and quickly, I know we're running out of time, but another feature of Peardeck is called the flashcard factory. This is called Peardeck Vocabulary. This is another great review tool. Essentially, two students, they work together and you give them vocabulary terms. You give them one term, one student has to define the term and another student has to illustrate the term. So as we were drawing Ohio at the beginning of our Peardeck, students actually have to draw, you know, if you're talking about the medieval architecture, you know, they could draw their flying buttresses on there. But it's an add-on from Peardeck. And I mean, you could see I put some screenshots of things like of Egypt there. It's pretty impressive to see what the students actually create with that, their artistic ability, just using the trackpads on their computers. It did export. I haven't used it yet this year. It did export to Gimkit, which is another great game that the students like. It used to export to Quizlet. So you actually go through and approve all of the vocabulary terms to make sure they define them right, and then it turns them into a review game. You know, before I had a unit test or a unit assessment, I would use this tool and have the students review for that. And they actually build their own review games. Gimkit has changed in the near or recent past here. I'm not sure what's going to happen with it, but Peardeck Vocabulary I know is still there. So another worthwhile look, as you can see. And again, we have tutorials for this as well on our website.
Yeah, and one thing I will say about it, kids love Kahoot. That's a game probably all of you have tried. Kids love Kahoot. But when you ask them, and I've done this last 5 years in a row, I'll give them Kahoot, Quizlet, Peardeck. I give them one more, I can't remember it right off the end. And they always say Kahoot's the most fun. They like the competitive nature. But when you ask what they learn the most from, it's always Peardeck. And the other piece they say about the vocabulary, if you think about it, the vocabulary is concept development. So you've already kind of talked about a word, but now you have to work with a partner to figure out how do you visually represent that word, that concept. The answer he gave was like a flying buttress. That's a physical thing. It could be a concept, right? Like in this case, cultural diffusion. And then the kids have to figure out, and I do mine differently when I play. I don't have them define it. I have them provide examples of how it's been seen, because I think they have to know what that definition means to be able to take that next step, a little higher level step. So it's free, it's cool, and the kids build their own flashcards for review. That's another nice feature. Harry Wong used to say, he who does the most work learns the most. So they're the ones doing the work, and pretty much everything you're seeing so far, it's the kids doing the work, not me and not Travis and not JC.
And maybe, and just in case this helps a little bit visualize it, if we were doing cultural diffusion and let's say Garth and I were working together on it, Garth may say to me, hey, I think an example of cultural fusion is McDonald's being in Japan. So he would write that as the example, and then I would have to find a way to draw McDonald's inside of Japan. And then we push that through to the teacher, and the teacher will then on the screen in the front of the room approve that one or disprove it, which when you if you go to play with us, you can go through that process. But that's kind of what would be an example of how we could look at cultural diffusion. One of us has to draw it, the other one has to give an example. And
I will add one more thing to that, because I've done this so many times in grad classes and other places. I'll throw in random words, like from all content areas. And the discussions about whether to approve or disapprove of something lead to some of the best discussions I've ever had with grad students, because it comes to the point where, and again, I can't think of one offhand, but we were using a word for, it was in science, but it could also be used in like recreational use. And so it became this discussion about, in context, how do you understand words? So much can come from that discussion of whether this meets the definition. And kids really start to think, well, they're missing this. They didn't say this, and it really needs to be there. So the discussion you can create with something as simple as Peardeck vocabulary is real high level. So you might want to look into that. And again, we have tutorials on Peardeck vocabulary.
Right. Another thing too, you can also make this student paced. The Peardeck vocabulary, as I said, they would collaborate and work with another student. You know, working remotely, we have a blog post on how to make this student paced. And did we mention student pace on just Peardeck?
No, well, it came up as a question.
Okay.
But yeah, there is a feature, like what we're doing right now is synchronous, right? We're all on the same page. Whether you're actually on the Peardeck, you would be on this slide. You can't be anywhere else because we're controlling it. So that's synchronous. We're doing it all at the same time. You can do asynchronous where Travis, JC, and I could log off. He could turn it on to student self-paced right there. And now you have control and you can go anywhere you want on the slideshow. You go back to the first slide. You could rewrite your answer. You could go back and look at Thinklink. Now you're in control. And we could drop off this call and just let you do your work and join you in 20 minutes and say, okay, what do we need to do? So you can use it both asynchronously, and you know what I mean. I can't say the words right now.
All right, so we'll go ahead and stop the student pace. So we've got 2 more things here to go through, and then hopefully we'll have some time for question and answer. I guess one more thing and then question and answer.
So then the last one that we'd like to talk about, this is a very massive project that started in 2009. This particular is called the Student Created Online Textbook that kids wrote. If you click it, that is all written, all done, all video is all made by kids. About 1,600 kids have worked on this book from approximately 3-4 schools. So there's work from Beechwood, and there's work from Dublin, there's work from Chardon, and there's work from, I can't think of their school right offhand. But the kids have been able to collaboratively work and create a textbook written by students for students. Really at a 12-year-old level, it makes sense to them. They can understand the projects or the videos that are in there make sense to them. This is a very interesting project. I know JC last year, kind of piggybacking on this, he started using Google Sites to have his kids build just a textbook of his class. So all the key information and well, I'll let you talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I just set up a template. I cover, I guess, like 6 units in my 6th grade class. So I would just set up a template. And as we go along, I'll teach for 3 or 4 days and say, okay, what did you learn? Put it in your textbook. And I mean, some of the examples were phenomenal. I mean, because they have the freedom to put whatever videos they want in there, whatever images, they write about it. So, I mean, not only are we covering social studies content, but they did a ton of writing and a ton of editing, you know, for ELA, just investigating and finding what videos make sense. And so it was a really cool project over the whole year.
All right, so we'll go ahead and go to the last slide here, which is hopefully entirely designed here for you to be able to ask some questions and for us to have a few minutes here to answer those. So if you're on the Peardeck slide, you should be able to type questions in directly in there. If you're not in Peardeck, you can either unmute for inside the Google Meet or you can type it in the chat box. But this is hopefully you're going to shoot some questions at us here so we can try to help you make sense of all this.
Well, how hard are these to do? I'll kind of take a stab at that. It depends. Thinklink, very, very simple. Peardeck, very, very simple. VR, more complicated. Google Earth projects, somewhere in the middle. So I think there's like a level of how you build. First, you master the skills in the Remote 101, and you get your kids to be able to master those kind of techniques, and then you have to filter in these things one at a time. Thinklink is the first thing I will introduce to them. Actually, I'll probably introduce it to them the 2nd or 3rd class meeting we have, where I will have the kids do all about themselves in a Thinklink so that I will see images of them with their dogs, their family, whatever it may be they want. and they learn how to do that in a non-threatening way. But Thinglinks would be a great one.
Mhm.
So the question, where can you find the slideshow that has the links to the, I'm assuming you're going to say the tutorials and the sites. Linda will be adding and uploading this recorded lesson and the slideshow to the ODE website. Is that correct, Linda?
Yes, that is correct. And hopefully it'll be done tomorrow, but I can't guarantee it. But we're hoping to move quickly on that. And before anybody else needs to take off, there is a link in the chat box if you need the contact hour certificate from ODE. So just go ahead and fill out that survey. And a real quick thank you to Garth Holman, JC Link from Beechwood Schools, and Travis Armstrong from Dublin. This is awesome. This is really exciting to see how it all comes together like this. So thank you so much. But go back to questions now.
One thing I think that we failed to mention, where does Peardeck come from? Travis, how did you make the Peardeck?
Oh, it lives with, you're right, we did. It's a Google add-on for this slideshows.
Right. So any Google slideshow that you have right now,
Why don't you go over and show them, Travis, right now?
you click one button and you can turn it into a Peardeck.
So this is the slideshow we were using. So if I go to add-ons, Peardeck, open Peardeck add-on.
Which ultimately means, like, I'm looking at Dan because I can see his face, is Dan's built slideshows for his class. You can literally take the same slideshow you've built and turn it into a Peardeck relatively easily. So on this first page, we didn't have a question. He can say, hey, make this first page a response. Click it. And it builds a response box right on top of the slide. Now you're going to notice you won't see it when you build it. So it doesn't show it. It just says the bottom, there's a Peardeck on there. So now if we present this, you would get a blank box to write something in. It's not real tricky once you build your slideshow. You just say, oh, I want a multiple choice question here, and I'm going to ask them this. Now, we did the audio file wrong because we put it on where you had to color, and the coloring the drawing superseded the audio file. That should have been on a different slide. We just didn't think of it at the time. Again, you guys can turn your mics off and ask questions as well if you have. We were just trying to get you. What do you think of Peardeck? I mean, if you've never used it, what were your thoughts on Peardeck?
Well, let's ask a new question in case anybody wants to do the typing. So the new question here is, what tool are you most excited about? Or which one did you like? Why? Let's see what we come up with.
No winner yet.
Yeah, everybody's picking something different.
That's good.
Nobody's repeated, so
We covered good.
story.
If you guys have questions, if you're looking through tutorials and you're struggling with any part of it, if you have questions, reach out, email us. We'll be more than happy to try and help you through what we can.
I'll put that. I'm going to put my email directly in the chat box too. So if you're still here, you can click on it, pull it up, and that way you can. What is my email? Okay. And the slideshows, when you get the slideshows up on the ODE, they have our email, Twitter accounts directly on the homepage, so you can get it from there. Who wrote that about the deaf educators? I don't mean to pry, but there are some things that we might be able to help you out there, Abby, too. So please send me an email, because I think I know some things that might be helpful for you guys, like some other topics, not topics, that's not what I want to say, more accessibility things I think I know of that I can probably get to you. Beechwood still has the deaf ed program, but it is filtering out. Our last two kids are in 9th grade, so we do not have it housed in this program anymore. So depending on what class you're in, if you're at the high school, we might be able to get that set up. I know her pretty well. So
I
please
don't-
send an email to follow up.
I don't believe that Dublin does, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
Hey,
Dave?
Dave. Oh,
Yeah, go ahead, Travis.
well, Flipgrid, it is a Microsoft product, but I mean, it's seamless with Google as well. I don't know what kind of deal they worked out, but
Yeah, they even have a Google. They have a Google login when you go into the Microsoft thing. You can just log in with your Google account, so you're good.
right, yeah, one-click login or setup, and away you go.
Can you scroll down more, Travis, just to make sure we're not missing anything? Is that the end?
Yep.
So it looks like Sutori one, to be honest.
Dave, with that, like, I see how you integrate with Google Sites or Google Classroom. You can, like, students can download their responses, and then, you know, it's in their drive, and then they can upload it to any Google site or Google Classroom. You just, you know, I would post a link to it, and it would take them straight to where they need to be. So I would say it's a seamless merger there with Microsoft and Google and Flipgrid.
All right, if there are no other questions, we'll give you about 1 more minute, and then we got to turn this off, or at least the recording. So I'm going to stop the recording because we went over our hour. And then again, anybody that wants to